We're actually about to find out. Tomorrow, there are primaries on the Democratic and the Republican side, and the House and the Senate up and down the state of Texas. And I think it's an exceptional proxy. They're exposed to oil. They're exposed to the military. They're exposed to the national conversation about which kind of Democrat should replace Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, what kind of Republican should replace Donald Trump, and which direction the parties want to go in. That race is going to be fascinating, and turnout is through the roof. They're turning out more than the presidential. And at this point, last I saw, over 1 million Democrats had voted and just shy of 1 million Republicans. So it's a turning point for engagement, which is exactly what we've heard from members like former President Obama saying, if you want to change this, you've got to turn out and vote. And that's what's happening.
Give us the dynamics of the Democratic Party from what I'm going to call a more visible, more modern left, maybe Vice President Harris of California being an example of that. And bring it over to Jack Reed in Rhode Island as well. Is there a measured Democratic Party that would be in support of the events in Iran?
Jack Reed is one of the institution's most, esteemed members at this point on both sides of the aisle as the leader of the Armed Services Committee and foreign policy. And his direction is unparalleled at this point. And his stature, really can't be replaced. I remember when I worked on a campaign in Rhode Island many years ago, he was still, even then, at the front of the race. The differences between what Democrats are thinking right now suggest that the war powers resolution is very likely to fail later on this week. The Senate will vote on Tuesday and the House maybe on Thursday. And it looks likely to me that the president has at least John Fetterman in his side from Pennsylvania to vote and make it look bipartisan. And the only thing I could say is that there must be something in the water in Kentucky, because the Republicans from Kentucky are the only ones who are willing to actually stand up to the president and say, hey, the American public has a negative 21% rating of the president's handling of foreign policy. And unfortunately for the president, that makes it the third least popular agenda item, followed by the economy, which is underwater by 24 points, and the cost of living, which is underwater by 30-something points. So the president's top initiatives, tariffs, foreign policy, whether it's Venezuela or Cuba or Iran now, is extraordinarily unpopular. But the Republican base continues to be extraordinarily tethered, with the lone exception of Kentucky.
If the war powers resolution were to pass, though, Henrietta, if it were made law, Congress hasn't done that, I guess, since during the Vietnam War, right? As a check on executive war authority. Would that be the last time that was enacted?
Alex, I think this is such a fascinating conversation topic, because here's the deal. You have the war powers resolution, but even the vote is optically problematic. The president is out here waging a war in the Middle East with, different allies exposed now, whether it's Kuwait, whether it's the United Kingdom and their military bases being attacked. This is going to be expansive. So the war powers resolution, just having the vote, signals that there might be duress and distress domestically that the president's going to be reined in by. And so there's this legal question of whether the war powers resolution even needs to pass with the veto-proof majority, or if simply passing with 51 votes in the House and the Senate is significant to say, hey, the president's lost the ship here. He doesn't have the backing of the U.S. public, and he might lose some of his support abroad. That's the fascinating dynamic. So, of course, our base case expectation with, 100% odds should be that there are no veto-proof majorities for this legislation, but it's the message that's sent by even holding the vote the White House is pushing back on.
Give us quickly here, Henrietta, and we'd love to have you on later this week as well. What is your estimation of a length of this conflict, this war? It seems to be we're out weeks. I feel like the beginning of the Civil War in 1861. What's the appropriate political length of a war that's okay?
I think the American public is very pessimistic that this is going to be over quickly. There's been some interesting polling showing 30+% of Americans think that this is going to last for years because of our institutional muscle memory around the Middle East and engaging there. The plurality behind years is that this will last for weeks. What disturbs me a little is that the president was calling, I think 10 reporters over the weekend and seemingly workshopping different durations, a couple of days, 4 or 5 weeks. There is no near-term end plan, and no end plan really that I can divine, given that we have extracted regime change. The former leader is dead. And there is escalation and now 4 military deaths of U.S. servicemen. So the American public believes that this is going to extend into weeks at a minimum, and I'm inclined to agree with that.